Keeping it real with Shannon.
Until I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I was disgusted with what I saw. So I said, you got to make a change, man.
It's all about fun, laugh, and getting through life. That's what it is.
I find you have everything to gain with Christ, and without him, everything to lose.
Then I'm gonna lay you down, just like a bridge over troubled water.
Hi, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am so excited to have two special guests on joining us from the company 1 Life. And we have joining us is Mr. Corey Lewis, who is the co-founder and CEO, and Thomas Drew, who is the co-founder of 1 Life. Let's welcome them to the show. Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
welcome.
Hey, and thanks for having us. Thank you.
Oh, so excited to see both of you tonight. I can't wait to talk to you. But before we start talking to you, I do just want to give a shout out to the St. John's Recreation Center for the early voting. I went to vote today and they took care of the senior citizens, so I'm really happy. And they're doing a good job. They're getting people in and out. And they're located on Prospect Place and Troy Avenue. So if that's your voting site, make sure you get there to vote. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of our people who are coming out in droves and vote. So thank you. So let's get to our two gentlemen tonight, Corey Lewis and Thomas Drew. So tonight, first of all, before we just get into the topic, mental health in Black men, just tell us about 1 Life and how you got started with this company.
So I won't do it too heavy of a story just because I know, we have a certain amount of time, but basically 1 Life, where we are now, T Drew, who's my best friend, as well as obviously my business partner, as he's the co-founder of this company, where we are now and how we look at mental health. It's something that's a truly passionate topic for us. So 1 Life as a whole is a health and wellness platform that reviews, blogs, discuss everything in the health and wellness space. We break our content into 7 dimensions of wellness. So mental wellness, financial wellness, physical wellness, social wellness, emotional wellness, environmental wellness. So we have a huge list of how we look at things. Because T Drew and myself are so passionate about mental health, it has kind of taken the lead for us in terms of what we want to focus on, and especially during these times with the pandemic and with all the social issues going on in our country and around the world in general. And it has been happening for a long time. I know myself and T Drew have dealt with mental health situations and experiences, not only for ourselves, but along with other people in the past. So it's become truly important for us to utilize the platform that we've built to continue to shine light on mental health and create content around mental health, to continue to build a community around bettering people mindset and building a community that allows people to come to have a place to ultimately work on mental health and be able to talk about it and to destigmatize the issues that usually come with mental health, as people continue to look down on people who have mental health issues. But a lot of people, for that reason, hold it in. So for us, we want to create a community and a platform that kind of stepped away from that realm and really build community.
So let me ask this question, because when it comes to men, like regardless of whether it's mental health or prostate cancer, any kind of illness, what is it that you think with men that they feel that they can't, let people know when something is wrong, or they, not feeling up to themselves? Like, why such a stigma for them to, talk about what's going on with them?
I think for men, I think it's a combination of gender norms and societal expectations. So, when you think about how most men are raised, and I don't want to, make generalizations for people's experiences growing up as men, but
for the most part, as a man, you're taught to, be tough. You're taught to hold things in, and being tough is actually being vulnerable. Corey and I, we had Ludacris as a guest on our podcast, and we were talking to Ludacris. He said, strength is in vulnerability. And Ludacris is someone that Corey and I, obviously, as an artist and entrepreneur, just being Black men, we've looked up to someone like Ludacris our whole life. And for him to say that, someone as successful as him in so many disciplines, I feel like that is the insight that we need to take away. But to directly answer your question again, I think it is, we're in the year 2020. And when you think about, my parents are baby boomers, and even the generation before that, the way that men are raised and the way that, men are seen in society is as a man, you just don't open up. And every 40 seconds, someone takes their own life, and people don't understand that as far as suicide rates, men are at the top. Men lead as far as percentages and people taking their own lives. And it's a lot because men bottle things up. We feel like we're not able to talk about it. And the favorite analogy I use is a water balloon. You can continue to fill a water balloon up with water, and water balloons are, they can stretch a lot, right? So over the course of a life, if you get to even being 60 years old, that water balloon gets really big. But at some point, if you keep filling that up, it's going to burst. And that's really what not being able to deal with not being able to let that water out of the water balloon. That's what a lot of men have to deal with. And so I think that's where it stems from.
So I wanted to ask, what are some of the issues that you think that are prohibiting mental illness to be a major concern in the Black and brown community? Why is it so prevalent that people are not seeking help?
So I think to piggyback off what T. Drew has mentioned, I think, again, especially in the male, I think for us, I think as a community, as a Black community, we tend to look down on people who deal with mental health issues for whatever reason, for the unfortunate reason that may be, because the stigma that comes with mental health is that you just have issues, or, but in reality, a lot of people have mental health issues who a lot of times hold that stuff in, as T. Drew mentioned, with the water balloon analogy. They hold it in until they just burst. And then, unfortunately, if we don't deal with these issues, we'll never find a solution. We'll never build the communities that are necessary. And then people will continue to take their lives, or it just becomes too late to where there's no way for us to figure out a way to deal with the mental health issues that are prevalent amongst people. And, unfortunately, in our community, I feel like it's just because it's looked down upon. So people are, almost scared. It's like the kid who has a hard time learning in class, who doesn't want to raise his hand, to ask a question about a math problem when it seems like everybody else gets it. So I that's how I look at mental health. When in reality, there's multiple people who have a question about that math problem, but that they don't want to be the first one to kind of jump out there. So I think within our community, that's kind of where it stands.
So how do we begin to start the narrative?
I think it is. I think it's access and conversation. So I think it's conversations like this. But we were talking about this in a previous article that we had. I think it is challenging big platforms. It's challenging government. It's challenging people with voices and people with resources to lend these resources towards continuing to create these conversations. Our podcast is called Off the Cuff with Danny Laperiore. Actually, it's a mental health podcast, and a good friend of ours and Mel Creative hosts that. And it's a mental health podcast. We launched it on October 1st, and we almost already have 10,000 YouTube subscribers. And all these subscribers are like, this is a podcast that I've needed. I saw a comment before from one of the listeners that said, I feel like if one of my loved ones would have had this podcast a while ago, they would still be here and they wouldn't have taken their own life. Mm-hmm. What that tells me is that we just need more conversation. And not just conversation, we need more access to resources, because it's one of those things. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of these things that people are feeling, whether it's, anxiety or depression, or, maybe you think you may be bipolar, or like whatever it is, whatever mental health thing you're going through, instead of, feeling that you're weird, or instead of feeling like this is something that can't be solved, the first step is knowing that you're not alone, and that comes with conversation. And the second step is figuring out how to rectify it, which comes from the access to resources. And so to me, it's a combination of capital, resources, and conversation. And through that, I think we can build change and awareness.
Absolutely.
Also, I think too, we have to start really bonding with each other, and men bonding with other men who you can have that conversation with when you're not feeling like yourself, or you might be having problems at home, or something might be going on the job. You need to have some kind of support team to talk to, because I don't know what it is. Like, even when you try to talk to the men sometime, like your husband or boyfriend or whatever, when something is going on, they just shut down. Like, they don't want to talk, like they shouldn't tell you anything. So I think if we could get through to men to let them know, look, we are here for you. People are here for you. Your family is here for you. So when you're feeling down and depressed, it makes you feel so much better when you can ventilate and talk to someone else about what's going on with your situation. You feel much better about it. And then we need to be able to reach out and help each other, because sometimes we don't want to help each other. We rather talk about the person rather than reaching out and help them. And I think if we could get past some of those things, then I don't think people would be as depressed as they are, because we're always going to have some kind of something going on in the world that we're going to have to deal with. And we gotta find out how to deal with these things.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, well, I was talking to somebody else today. I mean, we haven't lived through a pandemic in the last, 150 years. So everybody has some type of mental health thing right now, because the world is in a messed up place. So, along with this type of stuff, that's the timing. I mean, it's not, this is a conversation that is needed to be had for a long time, but I feel like now it's much more prevalent, not only with the rise of social media, and there's good things about social media, but there's also bad things about social media, in combination with we have never lived through a more trying time than what we live through right now, besides the original civil rights movement, and then the second civil rights movement, which initially, kind of somewhat just happened. So it's a whirlwind of things and emotions, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think everybody's going through a mental health thing right now in some capacity, and that's why this stuff is so important.
Yes.
Well, we're going to come back and talk more with Corey and Drew. And thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Why aren't you voting?
When you vote, you can do something about everything. At voteforyourlife.com, it's never been faster or easier to make a plan to vote.
Time is running out, but you still have the chance to use your power.
Check your registration and make sure your address on file is correct.
Find your state's deadlines, learn about local candidates, and request a ballot.
You'll be able to see where candidates stand on issues you care about.
Order a ballot request form to be mailed to you with prepaid postage,
allowing you to vote early, easily, and safely.
Make a plan to vote early by finding your nearest ballot drop-offs, in-person polling place, or local mailbox.
And this is where you rise, this is where you shine, this is where you become the greatest of all time. History in the making.
Vote for your life.
Hi, if you're just joining us, our special guest today is Mr. Corey Lewis and Mr. Thomas Drew from One and One Life. Now, before we went to break, we was talking about different things. So what would you suggest some things that men can do? Even though we're talking about the men, but I guess we can also talk about other people with mental illness as well. But what are some things that they could do, say just getting up every day, to kind of keep your mind on track? I know, Drew, you had said something about you get up, make up your bed every morning. I do the same thing. I make up my bed every day, you know, because
Yeah,
that's just a of soothness to me is, making sure everything is put in place and clean, and so it's like some little things that I think people can do to keep their mind straight and not worry about stuff that you don't have no control over.
right. I'm actually going to pass this one to Corey because I think he has a tremendous routine. It's very, very interesting. So I think he definitely should share that.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm not saying I keep it to myself. I've obviously mentioned it and discussed it. I think finding your routine is very important for your mental health and finding your anchor to start your day. I think I think it does wonders for your mental health. I mean, there's days where I'm overwhelmed and I'm like stuck in bed. I'm up, I'm awake, but I'm kind of paralyzed by everything that's going on. And but what I realized is that once I got this routine to where I read my Bible, I read a book. So I do like 15 minutes each, and I'm mostly into self-help books and things that are motivating, inspiring, etc. And then I also play brain games, and simultaneously while I do that, every morning I soak my feet. So like it's all part of my morning routine, but like it sets the tempo for my day as well as working out and I don't work out every morning because sometimes T Drew and I actually use the same trainer. Sometimes we work out in the afternoon, but like making it a point to exercise and have all of those anchors in my life that keep me in my routine and keep me grounded with my physical wellness and my mental wellness and keeping me on the right path are truly important. A lot of times I feel like people don't have a routine and they're just kind of all over the place. So like when stuff does go, haywire, there's nothing for them to kind of fall back on, whereas like I always feel like when my life is scrambling, it's because I haven't prayed in a while. I haven't, read my Bible in a while. I haven't been in my routine in a while. So like a lot of people don't have these routines. So like when there's nothing to fall back on, everything just continues to go haywire. So I'm very big, with all the people that I work with in the physical fitness space. Find your routine, with your nutrition, with your physical fitness, and then you'll ultimately get to where you want to be with how you want to look and mentally and physically.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because a lot of people don't know to focus on self-care, and it's really important for the mind. So when you talking to individuals regarding this mental health, do you couple the nutritional factor in with their self-care as well?
Yeah, so we actually have a registered dietitian who's one of our experts, and she works closely with our clients, people who whether they want to work with her directly or they work to have a customized program planned through the One in One Life platform. So she's amazing, and nutrition is very important, especially when it comes to how you want to look, but even also just for how you feel. So a lot of people eat garbage, and so they feel like garbage. So there's definitely foods out there that make you more alert. There's definitely more foods out there that just put you in a better mood, help you feel better, and all that good stuff. And there's definitely diets that do the exact opposite. So finding that that kind of structure with your nutrition is also very important for how you feel and very important for your self-care overall. Because I mean, T Drew, I've seen it, like when he's dealing with physical issues, like it takes a toll on him, and him when stuff's taking a toll on him, it takes a toll on me, right? Because we're not only is he my friend, but he's my business partner. So for those reasons, we try to work to find ways to, if he's dealing with something, how can we solve it to move past it? Because I know it ultimately will make him better. He's a very bright, smart person, so I always need him in his best state mentally. So like when he's not, I need to figure out how to get in there. And sometimes it's just figuring out, what's wrong by process elimination, and just trying to get him in a routine.
Do you think? Okay. Do you think there's enough? Well, they always say it's not, but I know there has to be. I don't know. I know we have resources out there for people that suffer with mental health. Is it they're not using it, or is there not enough resources out there to get help? Because there's a lot of people walking around on the street now that every time you hear something on the news, I heard it today as well, somebody getting killed or something because they called the cops or they had mental problems. And what is this that we are not addressing the mental issues that's going on?
I think it's really systematic. I think it is. It's something that is all the attention on this is relatively new, right? Especially as it pertains to men, and especially as it pertains to us talking about it. So, I think the main problem is that people don't know where to go for help. People don't know that help is available. We have to restructure the way people think about therapy, the way people think about having someone to talk to. A lot of times, if you have therapy or if you have a support system and a support group, then you may not need to be on some of the medications. Now, something else that people need to really understand is that there are different types. There's really, forms of depression that are actually chemical imbalances in the brain, right? Which are completely different from, you just having a bad day or feeling sorry for yourself or needing a pep talk, right? Like these are things that are real chemical imbalances that people deal with, and they have to continuously deal with ups and downs. So I think that if there are more systems, processes, and conversations that allow people to identify what they're dealing with, and then after they're able to identify it, then they can find what they need to help them, whether it's a support group, whether it is access to a therapist. I know for a fact that one of the new frontiers with a lot of what's going on with technology and apps and stuff like that are meditation and therapy things that are technologically and digitally based that allow people to make finding a therapist or finding ways to meditate or finding support groups a little easier. So I think one thing that people need to understand, number one, especially men, is that therapy is an amazing thing. I had a therapist as a child, when I was like 12 to 14 years old, when I was going through not fitting in and things of that nature. I was like a nerd in school and stuff like that. I know Corey has had great experiences with therapy, not only physical therapy, but mental therapy, because Corey has had to persevere through a ridiculous amount of injuries in his professional football career. And therapy is one of those things where you never know how good it is and how beneficial it is until you have it. And I think just as not just men, but definitely the African-American community, we need to rethink about our relationship with therapy, because nothing but something good can come from therapy. Because you think about all the things that you're sharing, all the things that you bottle up inside, and you're able to share those things and have those things rectified with someone that is confidentially listening to all these things. There may be things that you may not want to take to your mother. There may be things you may not want to take to your best friend or your father. But therapy allows you to really come to terms with yourself. And, as Corey and I believe, wellness is an inside out thing. So if you're not able to get right on the inside, you're not going to look good physically. You're not going to feel well. You're not going to be able to treat other people well. And I think that really starts with things like therapy.
Well, that's so true. That's so true, Drew. Because I want to say there's nothing wrong with therapy. I went to therapy to want to find out why I eat all the time. I eat when I'm happy. I eat when I'm sad. So I thought maybe there was something going on, but I guess it was just one of those things that I just wanted to do on my own. But there's one thing I do want to say to men tonight. If something is going on or you have a problem, whether it's sickness or whatever, talk to someone. Talk to your wife. Talk to your girlfriend. I mean, men have to stop. Forget about what you was taught growing up, that you're supposed to hold everything in. You don't have to hold everything in. If you want to cry, you cry. That's what you do. They always say that. And you have to, in this way, you won't feel as depressed as you do when you do feel that way, because now you are talking to someone. Because, you know, my brother just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he was sick. I didn't even know he was sick into the last maybe 6 or 7 months, because he didn't tell me that he was sick. Why? I don't know. He's dead, and I'm still angry with him because he didn't tell me he was sick. And then by the time I found out he was sick, he was going down the other end. And I don't know why men feel like, because even when I would try to talk to him and suggest things to him, he didn't want you to do that, or, you know, oh, you need to go to the doctor. Why don't you go? You know, it's like they don't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to listen to anything you have to say. And it's like torment, because you feel like you can't help the person because they don't want to tell you anything. And I don't know where that's coming from, that men feel they can't talk to us. And I want them to know that's why we're here, for you to talk to us. If you don't want to talk to us, then talk to someone else or whatever. Why are you don't want someone to know you sick? I don't understand that with people that don't want someone to know that they're sick. Someone can help you if you are sick. If I'm sick, I'm letting you know I'm sick. I'm not going to go around broadcasting it, telling you everything. But if I'm talking to you in conversation, I will tell you. But I find that this is a real problem with the men, because I felt like I can't stop even my brother from being sick, but I felt like I could have had more time with him. Not that I probably could have. I'm just saying that that's how I was feeling. Is because now I don't have no time with him.
Right. T-Drew, I don't know if you saw that question that popped up.
I think it was along the lines of, how do we encourage men to be more comfortable with something like therapy? I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I think it was men, or I think it was men or family members, or if I read correctly. But.
Right, suggestions for helping male family. Yeah, you know, I know Corey has some thoughts on this, but quickly, you know, here's my thing. For example, Corey is probably the toughest, strongest, biggest person I've ever met, right? He's 6'5", he's 320 pounds, he benches 500 pounds, he was an offensive lineman on the New England Patriots. He's the biggest, strongest man I've probably ever seen in my life. So if he can go to therapy, anyone can go to therapy, right? If, you know, your favorite celebrity or your favorite musician, tons of them, if they can go to therapy, you can go to therapy. And so it's one of those things. It's no longer about, oh, I'm too, like, we got to throw that out of the window. The real strength is in vulnerability. And that's, I think that's a way that I would like to parallel it for anybody who is on the fence. It doesn't make you any less of a man doing it. It makes you more of a man.
100%. And I hear the music coming on. I know we got to wrap. But yeah, Carol, I believe her name was, yeah, as T-Drew said, you know, obviously I'm not sitting there to tell your family member, this makes you more of a man or anything like that. But, you know, just have the conversation that it's okay to have someone else to kind of be that middleman. And, you know, obviously if they don't want to open up to you because they have that alpha mentality, which most men do. We're very prideful. We feel like we're very alpha. And sometimes we're stubborn. So like, we don't want to open up to our sister or our wife or our girlfriend or, you know, our cousin, whatever it may be. That's just who we are. A lot of times men like to internalize things, but at the end of the day, just let them know you're there for them. And, you know, you think that seeing someone as, you know, who's essentially an outsider from their norm could be helpful. And, you know, I think they may be open to that. And even if you suggest going with them, you know, I know my mother went with me the first time that I wanted to seek help, you know, for my anger management. And like, you know, so it was great. It was great. It's been a blessing for me, and a support system is always key for progress. And, you know, I have a great support system. I have a great family. I'm very blessed, you know, to have a business partner and best friend like T-Drew, and just continue to push forward.
So Corey and Drew, we're going to end this part of our show, but we do come back for the after show. So if you got a few minutes to answer the rest of the questions, I would appreciate it. if you hang around for a minute or two. So we want to thank you for joining us today and talking about this important topic. And if you have anyone who's suffering from mental health, talk to them, get them help, find resources from them because it is out there. And remember to talk to someone. It's always good to talk to someone. So thank you for joining us. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
Hi, we're back for our after show for a few minutes. If anyone else still had questions for Corey and Drew, you can post your questions. But in the meantime, Corey, we won't keep you too long. I also wanted to ask the question too about I don't even really know how to phrase it without being like insensitive, but when people have mental health issues like this, and then they go to the resources, they might admit them wherever in the hospital or wherever, and then the next thing you know, they're back out on the street again, and then they're wandering the street now because there's so many people with mental illness on the street now. So I mean, like, how are we going to get this under control? These people.
That's an interesting question. I think we I think we really need to reframe and rethink about how we go about dealing with people that have mental health problems, because we're coming into a new age. We haven't had to deal with factors like social media and the over delivery of information that is like changing the way that we think about things in our brains and things of that nature. We haven't had to deal with such a stressful and crazy, last 4 years. So I mean, we live in New York City, and I've thought this too. I'm like, I've seen more people losing their mind out on the street now than I ever have. And so we need to figure out something that is a system where we can take people and give them the resources to where they can get better. I saw a comment come up. Have you ever thought of, having these things on the street that, people can see where they can get help and things like this? Like there needs to be something that is disruptive, that allows us to rethink and reshape the way that we deal with this stuff, because it's starting to move into a new arena. And whenever something like this starts to do that, there needs to be modern solutions for a modern problem.
Well, yes, because like a lot of people, when they go to the hospital, a lot of them signing themselves out. They go on AMA for whatever reason, maybe the treatment, they don't want to be there, the environment, and they sign themselves out. Then also you have a lot of people that have mental illnesses that are not on medication. They're not compliant with medication, and then they're coupling that with drugs and alcohol. So it changes the balance of the medication. It becomes less effective. Yep. So we have that issue, and all the drugs in the community, that doesn't really help.
Nope. Right.
No, exactly. 100%. Yeah, I think our system's definitely broken, and for T. Drew and I also saw the comment about making it like corner stores when for males specifically, if we see it enough, we'll take more action. That's one of the things that's important for us on our platform, at oneandonelife.com, where we create tons of content around mental health, as well as through our podcast, One and One Off the Cuff. We try to address these issues. We try to build a community around mental health and not make it cool, because there's no way to make it cool, but to minimize the stigma that's around it, where people feel like, it's they're too good, or they'll be laughed at or looked down upon if they address their issues, at firsthand. So So for those reasons,
oh yeah, make sure you include the life. It's oneinonelife.com. I don't want you guys to go somewhere else.
Yeah. So like for those reasons, like that's why our platform, continue to use that platform to try to build that community around, inspiring others to, have a place to truly come and have a community to be able to talk about these issues and express these issues and deal with these issues. Because again, as the analogy I made earlier, I really feel like mental health is that math problem in elementary school where the kid who feels like he's the slower kid in the class doesn't want to raise his hand to ask that question about the math problem because they truly feel that they're holding up the class. But in reality, there's other kids who feel the same. They just don't want to be the first to step up and raise their hand because they think it's not cool or they'll be laughed at for not understanding what the teacher is saying. So at the end of the day, as one of the viewers mentioned, not make it cool, but like make it okay, make it acceptable to, talk about mental health and more people will ultimately step forward to talk about it and have a conversation about it. Because ultimately a lot of this does stem from conversation, as you mentioned, with your brother. If you were able to have more conversation with him early on while he was dealing with his issues, you feel like he might have been around a little bit longer. And I think that's a lot of people feel like that, when it comes to mental health. And a lot of people aren't even aware that people are having issues that they're having until it's too late, until they're reading a suicide note or whatever it may be. So we can find a way to make it okay to step up and talk about these issues. I think we can come a long way. And our system is broken because of the stigmas that are around it. But the more and more people who step up, the more and more platforms and, well-known individuals who address it and share their experiences, I think it'll ultimately help our system become better.
But I want to add something to that. I just want to add something to that, because with the system being broken, do you really believe that this system is broken, or is the system designed how it's meant to be?
I mean, I think the system was not designed for what's happening now. That's what I think, which means that it's broken. So I don't think, for example, systematic racism, that's a system that was designed to fail, right? Like the way that our culture and our people were brought over to America and the systems they were put in place, they were designed to fail. But mental health and mental health resources, this is one of those things that we needed a lot of research and understanding to really figure out what was really going on, to even get us to this point, right? So I think I don't think it's a system that's been designed to fail, but I think it's a system that isn't designed modern enough to help us deal with the amount of people that are actually dealing with mental health problems at a large scale and at a small scale. And so I think it's a combination of shared experiences, information, awareness, gathering of resources, and then figuring out systematic ways to disrupt and actually make a difference. And that is going to come through technology. That's going to come through the sharing of experiences from people that are influential. Because at the end of the day, with mental health, where it really starts is like, we say, you just have to realize that you're not alone. And when you realize that, then what happens is you share a common bond with people. And then what happens after that is you build a community. And then what happens after that is you're able to solve problems that exist within the community that are shared problems because of support. So that is the roadmap, I feel. And I think we're in a position now where, you look at it 3 or 4 years ago, some of these professional athletes, NBA players, actors, all these people that are openly talking about mental health right now, they weren't doing that. That wasn't occurring even 2 years ago. So this is very fresh. And, it takes a good while to disrupt something and really create a new system, because you need enough information to do so. And so as these things are moving and changing, to your point, Doctor, I think that we need to figure out what is best. But I think that this is all information that is kind of fresh and new, especially people, for the fact that people don't realize that mental health and suicide rates and depression and anxiety affect men the way that it really does. That's pretty, nerve-wracking when you think about it. I mean, there's a whole subset of people that people don't really understand that these things are going on. Women have been more open about it, but men, it's a stigma. And so it takes a lot to break a stigma. And so I think that's what we're doing right now. We're kind of in the midst of a stigma being destigmatized, for lack of not using the word within the term, but that's kind of what we're dealing with. And preventative measures, I guess I can quickly, I guess preventative measures you can take with children and adults before they have these issues is you have to, and I'll use my upbringing in my household as an example because I was extremely lucky. I think it starts at home. And I think that in growing up, parents, and definitely at school as well, but parents really have to facilitate an environment of having their children grow up in a world and in a home where they are allowed to share how they feel or what they think. Because, and it's the same thing with racism. I feel like the only way, that we'll be able to at least, build on the fact that we're trying to end, racism in some way, shape, or form. The systematic racism is very hard to end, but that starts at home. No child is born racist, right? They're taught to be racist.
Exactly.
Just like how when you grow up as a man or as a woman, or if you grow up in a certain, stratosphere, you're taught to, suck it up. Yeah, there's some things that you need to suck up, right? If you scab your knee or if you sprain your ankle playing basketball or whatever, yeah, suck it up, ice it, you'll be all right. But mental things, you can't suck those up because those don't, heal and the swelling doesn't go down and you're not able to play the next day. Mental things are different. So those are the things that if you're able to facilitate an environment at home that is facilitating sharing, maybe, as a family, and my family did this growing up. Like my mom would just ask me, how's school? Like, what's going on? And I was comfortable enough and open enough to be able to tell my mom, hey, Mom, I was being bullied at school. Like this is something that happened to me. I went to a private school and we had, I was in the choir and I was like really rambunctious. I had ADHD and the teacher told me to do something and I didn't do it. And I was sitting on the floor and the teacher came over and kicked me in the back and embarrassed me in front of the whole class. And I was like crushed by that. And I went home and my mom asked me what happened at school. And I felt able to tell my mom because of the household that I grew up in. We normalized sharing, right? Like my dad told me to keep it real with him. He told me to tell him what was going on. And so my mom then went to school and reprimanded that teacher, got her fired, and I was happy. Like now, if I wasn't able to feel comfortable enough to share that within my own household to my mother because of how she raised me, then maybe I would be a completely different human being, right? But I was going through bullying as a child, and I lost my best friend because of a tragic situation that was very traumatic. Like my best friend's dad, when I was 8 years old, he was one of my father's best friends. When I was 8 years old, and when my best friend was 8 years old, his dad took his own life. That was my second dad. Took his own life when I was 8 years old. And it's burned into my mind. I'll never forget this. I was eating a bowl of Cheerios and my mom came in the kitchen and told me that he took his own life. And I went to therapy for that because I lost my best friend. His dad was gone. He was like my second dad. I didn't understand what was going on. So my parents, put me into therapy. And so it goes back to the point, and this is also, backstory of why I'm so passionate about this stuff. It goes back to the point of facilitate an environment where your children and your family are able to share these things, because it breeds habits for when you grow into an adult. That was a very long-winded explanation. I'm sorry for that, but I think it's a story that goes with the answer, the question that they just asked.
Yes. And Corey, Drew, what you said about family, that's what I was thinking when you were saying that. I said, when things start happening to us, we have to learn how to go into a survival mode. Like, if an issue happens in the home or with the job situation or whatever, we need to go into survival mode to come together to figure out how we're going to deal with this situation. Because when things happen to you in your life, you got to figure this thing out. When I hear people, if they lose their job or something terrible happen, they commit suicide, or, they kill themselves and the whole family, whatever. No. There's always a solution to everything. You got to come together and figure this thing out. Like, we have to go back to the olden days when things would happen and everybody would come together. And if you didn't have enough money to buy groceries and stuff, you had enough money, you go and buy the stuff that goes a long ways, like potatoes and beans and stuff like that. Because, when you cook something like that, it goes a long way. And this also, you include the kids as well, to let them know some of the things that they may not be getting. You might not be getting no Christmas stuff. You might not be getting this. They survivor. You got to learn how to survive. And in this way, it makes it easier. I know, there was a time when I was struggling. One time I told my daughter, well, no, you're not getting any Christmas. You're not getting anything. This is what we're going to eat. Back in the day, my grandparents used to make stewed chicken backs. Stewed chicken backs don't have any meat on hardly, right? But they would stew them down with gravy and onions and stuff like that and put it over rice, and you would eat that stuff. And I remember when I cooked it with my daughter, and she said, oh, there's no meat on this. This is all bones. I'm not eating that. Where's my steak? I said, well, we can't afford steak, so you're not getting steak. You better eat them bags and bones or whatever's in the plate or whatever. I'm just saying that when something happens, we have to go in survival mode to see how we're going to survive to come out of this situation, so that we come out not being in some mental state that we can't handle ourselves or balance our life and things like that. I think that's what's happening a lot, is people are not sitting down, coming together, figuring things out. Because look, if some of us have to move in together with each other's family, then that's what's going to have to happen. We start moving back in together like the people in the other countries do when they live in the compounds and stuff, until the situation blows over. We got to learn how to come together, figure things out, and do what we have to do to survive.
Yeah. I hear the music again. So to wrap the after show up, we definitely got to come together. And, to everyone listening and whoever sees this, if you have problems, as, T. Drew mentioned, deal with them. Don't ignore them. Don't internalize them. Try to have a conversation about them. Deal with them. I've seen too many people too many times not deal with issues, whether it be with a loved one, with a friend, whatever. And ultimately these relationships, they end, or, things happen because of miscommunication. And T. Drew and I always talk about it. I mean, literally so many things happen because of a miscommunication. And we just communicate more and deal with our issues and deal with issues we may be having with somebody else, or have a conversation, or open the floor to each other, and again, promote the ability to share what's going on, with your loved ones or with your support team or whatever it may be. I think that'll ultimately create a better situation, overall. To just stop internalizing your issues. It's okay to have a conversation about it. It may not always be the most comfortable thing to talk about, but I promise you'll feel so much better if you just express what you're feeling or talk about it, or you'll feel 10 times better. I promise. I've felt it. There's been so many times where I've held things in, and I'm an internalizer myself, so I know it. T. Drew knows it, everybody knows it. But I like to talk about things in my own terms, but I do like to talk about it eventually. or it just will continue to weigh on you, or it'll come back to surface eventually, and you'll just have to deal with it then. So I think ultimately just have that conversation. Don't let miscommunications be the end all be all for your relationships, and just continue to find your support system. Doesn't always have to be family. It could be friends. It could be, somebody you meet online. I don't know. In this day and age, we have so much access to all types of people all over the world that at the end of the day, if you find that support system that you feel comfortable opening up with, find that system and ultimately, lock in on that. And I promise you, you'll be in a much better headspace.
Thank you, Mr. Corey Lewis and Mr. Thomas Drew. Thank you so much for starting this company of One in One Life. You're doing such wonderful, great work. Go to their website, oneinonelife.com. They have a lot of information on there. They got physical fitness stuff. I think you even got clothing you can wear too when you're exercising and things like that.
Yeah, we got we got athleisure. We have our blog with the 7 dimensions of wellness. We have the product reviews, so we can help you with your purchasing decisions, and we have the podcast, and we're also releasing supplements. So for cold and flu season, we have an immunity supplement. It's called 1 in 1 Shield. It has all the best ingredients for natural immunity defense in cold and flu season. I'm not going to say it's going to allow you to not get coronavirus. Don't quote me on that. But it has everything you need: vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, list goes on. And then we have another supplement too that's a natural energy booster, and it helps you burn a little bit more extra calories. So really proud of what we're doing, proud of where we're going, and thank you for having us on, Shannon. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Doctor, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. So thank everybody for tuning in to our after show. And we're going to let them go now because I know they have very important things that they have to do now. So thanks again. And we'll see you soon. Okay, then. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Today's show is sponsored by Aboo's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Aboo's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.